or on how to do things. He is just there on top, but the decisions are taken by the junior because they have the qualification. I mean, it's been long. I mean, people must admit, ANC has destroyed the country with the issue of redeployment without qualification. They must audit the qualification and see how the people get through to the job. We cannot. This country cannot move on like that.
Okay, Mohlahlana.
The last one, Cathy. I've always said that. I'm worried that why Mr. Zuma want to go down with the country, and why the people will allow the country to go down because of one man. This country is going to be torn apart because of one man, Mr. Zuma. He has a lot of money. He has a lot of everything that people do not acquire. Why don't he just sit there at Nkandla, taking care of his great children and great children, and give them advice, and then rather than roaming the street, singing, doing this childish things, this country is going down. And then I'm telling you, these people, they will cause a civil war. And then they have an armament, I'm telling you. This thing, Zuma has planned it for a long time. That if I go down, and then this should happen. It's not something that has just come around just now. It has been planned. He planned this thing long time that when he's getting out of the power, and then this country must go down with him.
Okay.
Please, South Africa.
Yeah, look, Mohlahlana.
South Africa.
Look, we're not there, right? We're not there, and the members of the party have been sworn into Parliament, and they have taken an oath to uphold, the country's constitution, and life is continuing in South Africa. Life is continuing.
Let me tell you, Cathy. Lastly, let me tell you. You see that thing of before '94 of Inkatha and the ANC. They are going to create it. Because now you see they want the KwaZulu-Natal and the whole country to be, the country must have a traditional law. What kind of a nonsense is that?
Okay, Mohlahlana, let's leave it there. Make what you will of it. He's not the only one. He's not the only one that believes in that kind of thinking, right? Tumelo, you're in Kuruman. Good morning.
Hi, good morning to you, Sis Cathy, and your fellow listeners of ATFM. I want to talk about this issue of employment. I'm very concerned, especially when it comes to the young graduates. Since '94, government has really tried to make sure that black people have access to education. But how today, young people have to be They get employed, and the first excuse, heavily employed. They just stay, and they are not making any difference. But government take more in making sure that these young people are not only educated but also employable.
Yeah, Tumelo, I can't disagree with you. That's exactly what we need, and beyond just getting people skilled, it's creating opportunities, right? Making sure the economy grows so that people can get more opportunity to employment.
Exactly. But it's really disappointing to see that to find young people they get access to those little opportunities that are available in our country, and they still waste them. They still waste them to alcohol, they waste them to drugs and other unacceptable things, you understand?
Yeah, look, there's a lot happening in our society, and don't discount the impact of the traumas within which people grow up in that also contribute to some of these behaviors that you're mentioning, Tumelo. But let's leave it there for this morning, Tumelo, out in Kuruman. It's 10 o'clock, time for the latest news.
In our top stories, Agnes Sichwanso's fraud case resumes and a petition to remove newly sworn in MK Party MP. Good morning. Agnes Sitranso, accused of killing a niece and cashing in on a life insurance policy worth 3 million rand, will appear at the Municipal Magistrates Court this morning. She is facing fraud, defeating the ends of justice and murder charges. Sitranso was arrested in November last year. She has also been charged with the murder of a son in July last year. Police and forensic pathologists exhumed the body of a husband in March to probe the cause of his death. Sibilon Mahine reports.
During her previous appearance, Sitranso's legal team accused the state of delaying the matter. This is after the state asked the court to grant them more time to centralize the charges against Sitranso. She has some charges laid against her in Northern Cape as well. However, the court gave the state only a month to do that. Sitranso's legal team also alleged that she had been assaulted by other inmates in court. The court instructed during her appearance in May that she may be given medical attention.
A petition launched by concerned citizens has garnered nearly 10,000 signatures calling for the removal of newly sworn-in MP Andile Mngxitama from Parliament. The petition accuses Mngxitama, a member of the Umkhonto weSizwe party, of perpetuating hate speech and urges the South African Human Rights Commission to take legal action against him. This comes after a video taken 5 years ago at a BLF event went viral, showing him making threatening statements about white people. AfriForum CEO Kali Kriel has expressed his support for the petition.
Even in the lower courts, that this kind of behavior can be seen as figurative speech. It's something that's not acceptable, and that is why we're now going to the Constitutional Court with regard to the Julius Malema Kill the Boer song, because also in that regard, it was said that it was figurative speech. But the problem is with that, one should not look at what people say the intention is when they say that. We should see what a reasonable person would feel when they hear that. And if you hear this kind of statements that children and women should be killed, it is harmful, it is hurtful.
Meanwhile, Mngxitama says he is not concerned about the calls for his removal from Parliament, as he was previously exonerated for his remarks by the Equality Court.
AfriForum took me to the Equality Court, and the matter was dismissed. The Equality Court was able to see the context in which I made that statement. I was responding to Johan Rupert, who had said in an interview with Stephen McCarthy that he has a private army in the taxi industry. Now, the taxi industry, our people get killed, murdered, children, women, indiscriminately. And here is this man who is threatening violence upon black people.
A call has again been made for men to circumcise, as this can reduce the risk of contracting HIV through sex by 60%. This emerged at the Initiation School in Daba in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. The 3-day meeting is looking at ways to make initiation schools safer, following the deaths of initiates at bogus initiation schools. Sizwe Hlongwa from health NGO Right to Care says it's important for men to circumcise, especially during this Men's Health Month, and they can make use of the freely available services.
During Men's Health Month, Health NGO Right to Care encourages men to circumcise to protect themselves against HIV and sexually transmitted infection. Circumcision helps reduce sexual transmission of HIV. It is offered for free across South Africa. You can make an appointment by sending a "Please Call Me" to 082 808 6152.
The Minerals Council says the mining industry has seen job losses of around 130,000 in the last 30 years. The council has also revealed that mineral exports fell by 100 billion rand in 2023 compared to the previous year. The annual review shows that mineral royalties paid by mining companies also dropped from 25 billion rand in 2022 to 14 billion rand in 2023. CEO at the Minerals Council, Mzila Mtenjane, says greater investment into the industry is required to help the sector grow for it to create jobs.
The decline in recent years in mining output performance because of infrastructure constraints is a tragedy that is manifesting in undesirable employment losses. The industry currently employs 480,000 people, and with the potential for growth through investment and growth, it only leaves it to our imagination in terms of what the possibilities for job creation and poverty reduction are and could be. And therefore it is critical for the sustainability and unfettered contribution of the mining industry to the economy that exploration is revitalized.
Recapping the top story, Agnes Ichwanso, accused of killing a niece and cashing in on a life insurance policy worth 3 million rand, will appear at the Municipal Magistrates Court this morning. She's facing fraud, defeating the ends of justice and murder charges. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation. Are you blowing your paycheck on car insurance every month? Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 Rand a month for her 2018 BMW 320i.
None of the insurance companies has come near to the price I'm paying. I am happy at insurance. I'm going nowhere.
SMS out to 30754 now for a quick quote that could save you hundreds every month. You'll also find out about included benefits like panic assistance and help it out 24-hour roadside assistance. Yusuf, 45 from Tegadal, pays just 700 Rand a month for his 2021 VW Polo.
Helped it out, took the family up to go and see the snow and I got stuck. The service was quick even though it was in a very remote area. Absolutely phenomenal service from our insurance.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Are you ready to take your brand to a whole new level? Have you ever thought about how big companies use strong PR to get more people to know about their brands? Their Law Group presents the inaugural Building a Brand Through PR Masterclass. Join us on Wednesday, July 3rd from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the DP World Wonders Stadium in Johannesburg. Learn from 12 industry experts as they share their case studies and personal testimonies that will transform your approach to brand building. Visit www.prmasterclass.co.za to get your tickets. Only 650 rands for an in-person experience, or join us virtually for just 350 rands. Don't miss this chance to master the art of PR and take your brand to the next level. Building a brand through PR Masterclass, powered by Independent Media.
Hey there! Need to know your TV license balance but don't want to wait? No sweat! Just send a quick SMS with your ID or TV license number to 44210. Remember, standard SMS rates apply. And presto, your balance pops right up anytime, anywhere. It's as easy as pie. So why procrastinate? Give it a try and get your info in a flash. T's and C's apply.
Attention tourism entrepreneurs, your success starts here. The Tourism Equity Fund is your gateway to growth. Whether you're seeking to expand or innovate, call SIFA at 012-748-9600 or visit www.sifa.org.za. SIFA is a registered credit provider. Terms and conditions apply.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
9 after 10 o'clock, welcome to the second hour of the show. Coming up in this hour, it is Municipal Watch. We are going to be focusing on the Sol Plaatje municipality today, dealing with some concerns that residents have faced that have resulted in ongoing protests in various areas in the municipalities, including protests over electricity meters that had been blocked and left residents without electricity for a number of days. We'll do that in a moment. First, your WhatsApp voice notes.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Good morning, Cathy. I think the concerned citizens should add ZZ Kodwa's name to the petition list. Thank you very much. I am Pierre Durban.
Hi Cathy, this is KM. I so wish you could come to Mfuleni municipality. You know, those people really, yesterday I tried to call them having a query with my account. You know, all their lines, their office lines do not exist. I can give you as an evidence to try and call them. All the machine says the number you have dialed does not exist. Thank you very much. And they are also there in the Google. You can also Google them. They will tell you the number that you have dialed does not exist. Thank you very much.
Good day, SFM listeners. I just want to know if is there any law or act in the parliament that says someone who's been charged but not found guilty of any wrongdoing can't stand to be a member of parliament. Before we jump to this conclusion about this Koto. Thank you very much.
Morning SAFM. I'll just like to focus on the step aside topic. Look, for you to understand the step aside thing, you need to ask yourself this question: who came up with it, and who has it applied to? That's it. You'll understand what is the step aside and who came up with it and what was it for. Thank you. Sia from Kabalake.
Morning, Cathy. Mqeta here in Kala, Eastern Cape. Cathy, let me reflect on the GNU that the ANC government is trying to make the government, trying to take the lead. I don't think it must be them who are leading this government. They must lead it jointly and they must agree in all respect. Because by the time we take our votes from the ANC, it's because the ANC messed with this country. So it mustn't be the one, that is the ANC, who come out with how this country must be ruled. They must take it jointly, the statements that they are going to apply to us. Thanks, Cathy. Better here. They mustn't keep dilly-dallying with us. They have messed this country.
Good morning, Cathy, and the listeners. You are speaking to Tuma from Cape Town. I want to know, Sis Cathy, you can't organize maybe one of the minister or any person who in charge for the housing of Ekur Lane there in Johannesburg. The reason why I'm saying this, we are waiting for so many years for the housing. So clearly we didn't have any inform that the procedure or the process is coming to the way or what. So now we are confused. We don't know what's going on because we are waiting for the housing. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day, sis.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
Let's get straight into Municipal Watch then. Government departments in the Northern Cape owe the Kimberley-based Sol Plaatje municipality over 700 million rand in rates and taxes. The department's businesses and residents collectively owe over 3.8 billion. Over the weekend, the municipality blocked the electricity meters of indebted residents, a decision that has since been rescinded. This is following protests. Premier Zamani Soul has now also called on departments to act ethically and pay their debt. The municipality has also been plagued by water shortages and other service delivery issues. Well, what is happening in the Sol Plaatje municipality? We're joined by Butana Phillips, who is the secretary of the Kimberley Action Group. Butana, good morning.
Morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Butana. Tapelo Matlala is municipal manager for the Sol Plaatje municipality. Tapelo, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to the listeners of SAFM.
And Madeleine Brandt is the provincial director, Northern Cape, at the South African Local Government Association. Madeleine, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and to all your listeners tuned in, listening to you right now. Good morning.
Thank you, Madeline. Tapelo, or rather, Butana, let me begin with you to give us the perspective of residents. So, over the last week, we have seen protests taking place in the Sol Plaatje municipality, residents complaining about their electricity being wrongfully cut off without due notice from the municipalities. Give us a sense of how things unfolded.
Okay, ma'am. I won't be doing justice if I didn't introduce myself and that will also showcase the issues of what's happening in Sol Plaatje. Introducing yourself is more than just stating your name. Well, my name is Pitana Phillips from here in the Dasi streets of Khalishiwe. A leader in spoken and representing the voice of civil society. And where I started with this of being the voice of civil society, remember we used to have Sanko when it was still acting and alive. And I had an opportunity by being invited by comrades like Tony Smith, who will take us to Sanko, and then the voice of civil society during that time, it was unmuted. But currently, the voice of civil society is very, very, very muted, and that is how we came about in establishing Kimberley Action Group, so that we unmute the voice of civil society, the voice of the residents of Kimberley, because we want to see Kimberley reclaiming its sparkle. We don't know where this sparkle has it's gone to. We don't know whether are we still the economic hub of Northern Cape. We don't know whether are we still the face of Northern Cape. Are we still leading Northern Cape, or in what point are we currently? So we need to have channels of communication that must be opened for all, because if there is not gonna be such channels that are open for engagement and so on, and when the voice of community, civil society is muted, then it means that they will bottle up and explode in a way that won't be a wise way. So
okay, all right, Butana. I appreciate that brief background, but I really want us to get into some of the issues of the day that are affecting residents. You also sound like you're in quite a windy area, so please just be mindful, because it is interfering with the quality of connection. I don't know if you're able to take a bit of cover while we have this conversation. So tell us what has been happening with regard to these electricity meters.
Well, the Sol Plaatje municipality is not coming out to give us the relevant information, because of we are sitting here and hearing this and that from the corridors, but unfortunately we are trying to inquire of what is happening. We just see things happen. As I'm saying, that the channels of communication are a challenge. So the municipal manager will be the one who will be able to tell us what is happening. But we as residents, we just see things happening, not knowing if the why was consultation not taking place, or all such things. So we are just at the branch of experiencing all this injustice.
So Tapelo, what happened? Tell me what happened.
Good morning once more, Cathy. Maybe let me start by saying that as you rightly said in your introduction, that the municipality is owed about 3.8 billion rand. And the residents, which is your households, owe the municipality about 2.3 billion rand. Now, the municipality has obligation to its creditors, like ESCOM, the Department of Water and Sanitation, and other service providers. And the municipality, as we are talking, it's in a debt relief program where we owe about over 1 billion rand to ESCOM, which poses a risk in terms of ESCOM cutting off the whole municipality if we are not meeting our obligations. We can only meet our obligations when residents pay for the services that the municipality provides. It is important to mention also that the municipality has a credit control policy which was adopted by council. Now, according to the credit control policy, before the municipality can embark on cutting electricity, the municipality normally gives residents or any of its creditors a 14-day notice. And how do we do it? We would provide what they call a pink slip to any resident who is owing the municipality. That is a 14 days notice. The municipality, in terms of the policy, cannot summarily overnight decide to cut off electricity. We do also, because we live also in the age of technology, we do also provide SMSs. We have samples of that, we have proof of that. We normally don't cut anybody. I must also mention, Cathy, what happened over the weekend. We had an unfortunate situation due to vandalism, where one of our substations, there was an act of criminality where cables were ripped off from the substation, and that led to widespread outages in the city. So even people who their accounts were up to date were affected by the power outage over and above the municipality having embarked on electricity cutting. The electricity cutting did not start over the weekend. It in fact started on Thursday. And Thursday and Friday, Cathy, we had huge response from the public, where the public was coming. And when we switch off, we normally encourage the public to come and make arrangements. If you don't have the full amount in terms of your debt, the municipality would then look into your situation and then come to an arrangement and then switch on your electricity. It is also important, Cathy, to mention that the municipality also, over and above the credit control policy, has also what we call an indigent policy, which is cushioning the poor. For example, a household which is earning less than 4,300, we normally encourage those to come to the municipality so that the municipality can make arrangements with them, and we address their challenges that they are having. So I think basically the long and short is that in whatever action that we were taking, we were following policy, and we think also with the time frames that are set in terms of notices and so forth, the community would know.
So Thapelo, when did the notices for the fact that you are going to be cutting electricity, when did those notices go out?
Well, those notices, like as I said, it's a 14 days notice. We are implementing the credit control policy every day. So if there is an account where we realize that they are defaulting over a period of 90 days or so, we normally inform the resident or the household that please know that you are in arrears and so forth. So credit control is not something that, it was not a knee-jerk reaction when we were blocking. It was based on the credit control policy that we implement on a daily basis.
So on average, how many messages of notices would you say you're sending out on a daily basis?
Well, it varies. For example, the other day, with regards to the electronic system that we are introducing, on a day or so, we managed to issue out about 66,000 messages, and it varies from depending on the number of households that are defaulting on their payments.
So for the residents in some of these areas, of course, the difficulty is that what they have said is that not only were they blocked off without notice, but they were blocked off even where you had residents that actually had fully paid up electricity bills. And I hear what you're saying about vandalism and a transformer that went out, which exacerbated the problem. But that problem seems to have persisted regardless of the issue that you had with the transformer.
Well, Cathy, I'm not aware of the problem persisting. However, if there is a resident who is up to date, that person can call the call center of the municipality, and I think the municipality will quickly respond, verify whether the person is not owing or not, and that person will be unblocked. If it did happen, it's unfortunate, but that should not be the case.
Why did the municipality decide to rescind the decision, if in fact it was a decision that was taken with due consultation with the residents and all was above board?
Well, Cathy, when we learned that there was blockages of roads, burning of tires and all that, we decided that we need to calm the situation down, engage with the community. We are not stopping with the process. We need to continue because we have to implement our control policy.
Conversation in a moment. This is Municipal Watch. We're taking a look at the Sol Plaatje municipality.
A very good morning with the news headlines at 10:30. Build One South Africa Bossa has called for a national convention with President Cyril Ramaphosa. Former Public Protector Busi Mkhwebane claims she's being persecuted over reports that she received money from the Gupta family, and Eskom is seeking to increase electricity tariffs by 36.15% in 2025. A full news update coming up at 11.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 18 rand 31 to the dollar, 23 rand 14 to the pound, and 19 rand 57 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mainly in the red at the closing bell. The JSE is mainly low in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are mainly higher. Gold is trading at $2,303. Platinum $1,600 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $85.51 a barrel.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point for Municipal Watch today. We are in conversation with, we're taking a look at the Sol Plaatje municipality. We're joined by the municipal manager, Thapelo Matlala. Butana Phillips is secretary of the Kimberley Action Group, and Madeline Brunt is the provincial director at the Northern Cape Salga office. So, Thapelo, you were still sort of getting into the process of consulting with the community. You have rescinded the decision to switch off or to block the electricity meters. Residents now have electricity back. And what I was asking you was, if everything has been above board, and if due consultation and notification, as you are saying, had taken place, why then have you cowered to the pressure from the community to switch the electricity back on?
No, Cathy, like as I said, we had just to calm the situation down. As I'm talking now, as you know, that it is not only households that are owing us. We are proceeding with the implementation of the credit control policy. Businesses have been switched off. I know of 2 government departments also that we have switched off today. So we are proceeding with the implementation of the credit control policy. It was just a temporary measure to calm things down, particularly given that we had this widespread outage that compounded the problem. So we had to factor that in.
But how did you allow the debt of these various communities of the municipality? How did you allow it to get to what it is today? And that applies across the board, right? With residents and also with your government departments and other businesses.
Cathy, I'm sure you know that we have a socio-economic challenge in the country, the decline of the economy. And normally what would happen is that people will come forward to make arrangements, and default on those arrangements. They would then come again, make arrangements, and as they do that, the debt is accumulating. So at no stage did the municipality just abandon its credit control policy.
What about with your government users?
Well, with the government users, it's quite a different nuance. Different in the sense that you will have government departments disputing the accounts that we are giving to them, and sometimes those are protected. The approach even that we have taken as Sol Plaatje municipality is that pay what you are not disputing, and that which you are disputing, we will then have a dispute arrangement and deal with the issue. I can tell you, Cathy, that, for example, the Department of Public Works paid us about 17 million around March or so, and it was based on that arrangement to say, fine, we do acknowledge that there are disputes. You might argue that we have not billed you accurately on this and that, but we do have been receiving the services on a daily basis, so please pay for what you think you have used. But these also keep on ballooning.
To leave it at that, Thapelo, is that enough? Because if you can make a decision to switch off residents at a wholesale level, as what has happened in the last week, surely you can do that with the government departments too.
Like as I said, Cathy, we have switched 2 government departments as I'm talking.
Yeah, but how many owe you?
Like as I said earlier, we are having a process that we are following in terms of notices and so forth. And those also, when the notice expire and they have not paid, we will switch all of them. At some point even, we switched off the legislature at some point. So we are not, we are very strict on implementing our credit control policy. There will be no holier than thou. All of the whether it's government or it's business or it's households, we will be switching off.
Madeline, let me bring you in here as Salga, because you've also had to get involved. There are, of course, broader issues around service delivery that residents that live in the Sol Plaatje municipality have raised. Your intervention as a Salga when it comes to having these matters addressed?
A good morning again, Cathy, and maybe I would want to start by saying that the provincial executive of Salga has met with 3 of the districts in the province. We have 5 municipal districts. 3 of those districts we have already had similar engagements, what we call structured member engagements with. We then met with Francis Bar District Municipality during March, and Sol Plaatje, as part of the B municipalities in this district, were part of those structured engagements. This happened at the political and at administrative level. Then on the 12th of June, there was a further structured members engagement that was held between Salga and the Sol Plaatje municipality. And maybe just to clarify, what is this structured engagement? It is just a form of setting up a meeting aligned to functional areas within the municipal space to allow Salga to be very specific in the support that they can bring to the municipality. So on that note, during this meeting of 12th of June, as Salga, we then, we listened to the municipality. They presented to us. On top of the March presentation, they then refined certain particular areas of focus that they want us to support them further on. We can confirm that for, there's 13 intervention areas that we've planned for this financial year. And after the meeting we had with the municipality, it increased to round about 18 roughly. I would want to say the areas of support that we will render with a specific focus on Sol Plaatje and addressing the needs that they've identified and shared with us. It relates to capacity building. It relates to communication. It relates to water and sanitation, asset management, debt relief, a legal opinion. I can carry on, Cathy. I don't know if I've got time to. I can mention all of them.
No, you don't. You don't have to mention all of them.
Yeah. So, but it's a whole basket of services, and I want to emphasize that it's sort of it is stacked at the level of the needs of the municipality that's identified to us. And I want to say this support that we will give in Salga, there's sort of 3 types of support that we render to municipalities from where we are sitting. There's generic support, and this normally comes, we do this to all municipalities despite the profile of a municipality or the size, and it relates a lot to capacity building. And we run that through various forums that we have, like ICT and Records Forum, targeting that particular group within municipalities. And then we have specific support programs that is based on the municipal reality or the profile of a municipality. And here I would want to make an example of the municipal audit support program. Here is where we render support to municipalities that is struggling within the audit space, so it's very specific to that area of focus. Then the support that we will be rendering to Sol Plaatje, and that has been confirmed on the 12th of June, will be a sort of an elevated level of support, and we call that collaborative support. This is support where we engage with, at the national level. It is taken up, and our colleagues at the national office support the province by engaging with sister departments in unblocking some of the, sometimes bureaucratic challenges that might exist in slowing down progress within the municipality. Or I would want to make an example here, for instance, what the municipality raised. They want us to look at the bypassing of national and regional roads, bypassing the CBD area due to the impact, of those heavy vehicles on the town infrastructure, the road infrastructure in particular. So that, for instance, would require discussions with various role players, in that space. And it straddles various departments and also government entities and even the private sector. So that collaborative package of support is what will unfold in this financial year. So that is what what we've discussed with the municipality, and as have indicated that as SALGA we remain committed to support our members where their needs are, where they identify the needs. We pride ourselves as a member organization, and when our members request specific needs, we truly go out of our way to make sure that we fill those gaps. So that's just for my side, Cathy.
Okay, all right, Madeline. Thanks for that input there. Boyce, you are calling us from Kimberley. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning to your listeners and to the municipal manager and the official from SALGA also, and my colleague Putana Phillips and yourself also. Cathy, thanks for taking my call. I just first want to point out to the municipal manager that there was no blocking of electricity during election time. While the people were still owing money, no blocking. Only after elections they start to block. Why is that? Is it that it was an ANC instruction not to block, or was it the municipal managers that decided not to block during that time? And also, Katie, for the bill of the municipality of electricity to be at 3.8 billion, it's incorrect. That comes from incorrect billing. Employees of the municipality will go to one area, look at two houses, and then bill everyone an average usage of electricity, or is it water? That is why the bill of the municipality is so high. We've been trying to resolve it, but we are not winning anything, Cathy. So the municipal manager needs to be honest with the people and tell them that these are the issues, the incorrect billing. They call it interim billing. We need the debt reset at the municipality. People needs to be put on zero rent. Then we take it from there. Can't give people, you can't be saying you're giving people 50% discount. People cannot afford that 50% discount because some people owe over 80,000, over 100,000. Where will they get 50,000 rand to settle their bills, Cathy?
Boyce, hold on for me. Tapelo, come in. Is what Boyce is saying true, that the municipality, in fact, did not follow process and did not give residents due notice?
Cathy, this will sound like a broken record. I did indicate that the credit control policy of the municipality, the credit control policy of the municipality, you have to give 14 days notice before you switch off electricity. So it will, if we switch off electricity without a notice, that would be going against the policy of the municipality. I agree with Boy, and in fact it is in our audit report around estimates. We are attending to that problem of estimates, and in fact it's classified as incomplete revenue in the Auditor General's report, and it is a matter that we are attending to. It is in our action plan. That is why even now we are moving towards smart metering, so that we are able to remotely read meters. So yes, it's a matter that we are aware of, and we are addressing that matter.
But Thapelo, the key issue that Boyce is raising is the fact that you didn't follow even your own process that you say needs to be followed before you cut residents off. That's what he's saying. He's disputing the fact that you say residents were given 14 days notice. He said that simply did not happen.
No, I don't think that is what he said, Cathy.
Okay, hold on, boys. Come in here.
No, Cathy, I was saying actually, why didn't the municipality carry out the credit policy during election time? Why wait for the elections to pass before implementing it? And Cathy, many people didn't receive the notices. That one we can agree to disagree with the MM. Many people didn't receive them.
Okay, Thapelo.
Well, like as I said, Cathy, we are implementing the credit control policy on a daily basis. I'm not sure where the issue of the elections comes from. We were not acting on the basis of whether there is an election or not. We are implementing, even before elections, we were cutting people, switching people off who are owing the municipality. There's never been a point in the financial year where we would not switch off.
Look, I guess, Thapelo, the point that he's making is that since you have these large groups of individuals and communities that owe the municipality to the point where, you find the majority of an area cut off because of this debt, that's something that if it were implemented even before the elections, communities would have well noticed. So it doesn't seem to have been implemented on a wholesale level in the way that it has been in the last week.
Well, Cathy, what I will just say here is that probably it's only now that it is getting attention, but it has been happening all the time.
Cathy?
Yeah, okay, boys, lastly, come in before I let you go, yeah?
Yeah, can I just come in again there, Cathy? And Cathy, we've noticed in the annual budget that has been adopted for 2024-2025, starting 1st of July, the municipality will implement partial blocking of residents. And no resident has been consulted on that. And also, the basic and capacity charge have both increased by 121%. And those are charges that residents have never paid before. It's something new. So residents are going to start paying them. And they've increased already by 121%. They were supposed to be implemented last year, but because we pushed for them not to be implemented, they were not. They were put on hold. And this year they have increased by 121%. And the partial blocking for residents is that when you buy electricity, a portion of your money will go to your arrears. No resident has been consulted. And I'm telling the municipality now, we as the Kimberley Action Group, if that is implemented on the 1st of July, that municipality will not operate. It is not a threat. Residents will protest as they have a right, as said in the Constitution of South Africa. This thing will not take place at Sol Plaatje. Why were we not consulted about it?
Okay, Boyce out in Kimberley. And as you heard there, he's also part of the Kimberley Action Group. Anonymous, you're also calling us from Kimberley this morning. Hello.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning, my fellow Kimberlites. Cathy, Mr. Thapelo, I want to ask, corruption is the core for me in this issue, corruption. That makes sense by Mr. Butana, the guy from Haleshuwe. Mohlahlana, in your street, how many residents have extended their houses first things first and have multiple rooms at the back? There's the question. And then, Mr. Tapelo, what is the process or the procedure one must follow if I want to extend my house or build another room at the back of my house? Why I'm asking this, Mr. Tapelo, and why I'm talking to you, Mr. Botana. Mr. Botana, let me start with you first. You have the responsibility of a resident. You are a neighbor of a person with an extended 4 rooms at his backyard. You see that you must know something about it. Now, why is it a problem? It might collapse the grid. Because some of those people are not registered. And some must come in here as well. Because those people, they must pay tax. They have rentals at the backyard and they don't pay tax. Now, Mr. Tapelo, you as the municipal manager, you issue municipal bills. You're a joke. With 2 different names, 2 different amounts, 1 address. Mr. Tapelo, during a party, there was a guy in Roodepan. His name was Mr. Rich. When you see Mr. Rich, you will lock your house if you didn't pay that month. By the end of the day, Mr. Tapelo, that account will be paid up. At night, Mr. Rich will come and you will unlock and you can enter your house. So, I understand this corruption thing. Mr. Tapelo, if you are serious about this thing, you must approach SAR. You must have a private investigator because there's a lot of incompetent people there by the Masala.
Okay.
And a private investigator, SAR, and you must account, please.
Okay, Anonymous. Thanks for the call. Lucas, you're also in Kimberley. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and to SFM listeners, and thank you for having me. Cathy, it's really unfortunate and equally embarrassing to hear the municipal manager not giving an honest version of what is happening. I think the reason why the people are rising up because of these blockages of electricity is because of the dishonesty by the authorities. In this case, the municipal manager. It is not true, this 14-day notice, what is saying. If at all that is the case, then it is not effective enough because a lot of people, including myself, we did not know about this. He's talking about pink slips. I don't think there's anybody who has ever received the pink slips here. Now, when they talk about the indigent, I don't know what is the status of the indigent. The indigent, of course, is the person that is not able to pay or who is getting paid a less amount. Why do they block the electricity for this poor indigent? Why do they block the electricity for the pensioner? And especially at that time of the month, whereby they know that the people don't have money now. The people must rush to the loan sharks and get into more debt. And lastly, Cathy, I think the authorities have lost touch with reality on the ground about the people, the communities, the issue of unemployment, the issue of inequality and poverty. They don't care about those things. I concur with my brother who said, why did they not block the electricity just before the elections because they know that people would not have went to vote. And it is not true that these credit control measures that they are talking about is taking place every now and then. That is a blatant lie, with all due respect. The last time the electricity was blocked was some time ago. And that's very, very important a point I want to make now, Cathy, and that one will be the last one. Let the municipal manager be open and tell you that, Cathy, the community of Kimberley does not owe the municipality for electricity because the community buy electricity, use the prepaid electricity. When your electricity is finished, you have to stand up and go and buy. So we don't owe the municipality for electricity.
Okay.
What is owed to the municipality is for the services, the refuse removal. And so. The people that owns the municipality electricity is the government and business. Those people that needs to be closed, that needs to be blocked, the electricity, they don't do, but the poor people in the townships must suffer this. I thank you very much, Cathy.
All right, Lucas out in Kimberley, thanks for that view. Tapelo, let me give you an opportunity to respond. I think you heard there overwhelmingly, residents are saying that, they simply were not told.
No, thanks very much, Cathy. Maybe I'll only respond to one point from Anonymous. The process that needs to be followed if a person wants to do an extension is to come to the municipality with the drawings and the designs of structure that he wants to improve. The municipality will look at that and give the person an approval. And this is important because if people just do upgrade their structures, their houses and all that, build bedrooms, they might build those on the pipes, water pipes, sewer pipes, and all that. That can create a problem. And that is why sometimes if communities do that, we will issue out a demolition order if the structure has been put in a place where it was not supposed to. So it is important that before communities upgrade their properties or houses, that they approach the municipality so that they get the necessary approvals. That is the first point. The second point with regard to, I think it's Lucas, he raised a number of issues. One of the issues he raised was around the people buying prepaid electricity. Yes, people do buy prepaid electricity, but when we do the switch-offs, it will be based on the areas that a household or a resident will be owing to the municipality. We are not only limiting it to electricity, and that is what the credit control policy provides for. Every action, Cathy, that we have undertaken, it was purely linked to the policy. But like as we are saying, we are considerate of the socio-economic conditions of the residents, and that is why we would advise that if residents have challenges, let them approach the municipality. The officials of the municipality are well trained in terms of assisting the community members of the public who are having challenges.
All right. Butana, I don't know if you're still on the line, but what then happens next for residents? Because Thapelo has created an impression that the municipality is doing what it needs to do, and residents are the ones that are not playing ball. Very briefly for me.
Okay, very briefly, Cathy. I was listening to the update of the markets. So that since we often not get opportunity to get consultation with the municipality. So what I picked up from that update of the market is the fuel prices which look set to shaping inflation outcomes. And then now I also want to touch on the impact of that.
Okay.
Of the food and service price inflation, which could worsen or remain high for a longer period of time.
Butana,
affecting many aspects of
Butana, let me do this. Butana. I'm going to put you on pause. It's time for me to take the latest 11 o'clock news. I'll give you a chance to wrap up your feedback on the other side of the news.
Thank you very much, Cathy. The top stories this hour: calls for a national dialogue with the president, and the Luke Fleur's murder accused are back in court. A very good morning. Build One South Africa Bossa has called for a national convention with President Cyril Ramaphosa. The Thabo Mbeki, Ahmed Kathrada and Desmond and Leah Tutu foundations and several others are currently briefing the media, calling for a national dialogue. The dialogue aims to address critical issues and foster engagement between citizens and the government. Bossa leader Musi Maimane says it is essential for parties to come together and articulate a plan for the future of the country.
I asked that the president convene a meeting with all 18 party leaders, because when you foreground the 7th administration with a plan that is tangible, that articulates what needs to be done, then and only then can you be able to go, okay, then here is the cabinet that will drive those. Because at this point in time, what it seems is happening is that an appointment of positions for position's sake as a start, and secondly, a deal between the ANC and the DA on the basis of who gets what and which DGs.
The Rules Committee of the National Assembly in Parliament has resolved that the composition of the portfolio committees must be increased to 15 members. During the 6th Parliament, all committees were made up of 11 members, but senior officials have proposed that each committee must be increased to 15 MPs. However, it was also decided that the matter will be deferred to the Rules Subcommittee to make further input before final adoption. The Secretary to Parliament, Masibulele Kaso.
Members will be aware that the number of parties has now increased, and therefore we are proposing that the size of committees also be increased, or the composition of committees be increased. In that regard, we are proposing that the number be increased to 15 members from 11, and that the ANC would then have 5 in that committee, A3, MK2, EFF 1, and other parties 4, other parties combined 4.
Former Public Protector Busim Kwabane claims she's being persecuted over reports that she received money from the Gupta family. This follows social media posts showing properties allegedly belonging to her son being attached by the sheriffs. Mkwabane was allegedly flagged by HSBC International Bank for allegedly moving money between countries. This after she allegedly received $5,000 from the Guptas in 2014. The Gupta family is synonymous with state capture allegations in South Africa, which saw them flee the country to Dubai. Mkwabane says her children have now been subjected to abuse.
I'm still facing challenges because I don't know how else to explain myself. As far as my son is concerned, they even went further to even attack his properties, and we have to get then the lawyers and the tax practitioners when he is not even within the bracket of being able to pay those services. So this is just a continuous persecution.
Agnes Setshwantsho, accused of killing her niece and cashing in on a life insurance policy worth 3 million rand, will appear in the Mulupo Magistrates Court this morning. She's facing fraud, defeating the ends of justice, and murder charges. Setshwantsho was arrested in November last year. She's also been charged with the murder of her son in July last year. Police and forensic pathologists exhumed the body of her husband in March to probe the cause of his death. Zebulon Maine reports.
During her previous appearance, Setshwantsho's legal team accused the state of delaying the matter. This is after the state asked the court to grant them more time to centralize the charges against Setshwantsho. She has some charges laid against her in Northern Cape as well. However, the court gave the state only a month to do that. Setshwantsho's legal team also alleged that she had been assaulted by other inmates in court. The court instructed during her appearance in May that she may be given medical attention.
And the 6 men accused of the hijacking and murder of Kaizer Chiefs defender Luke Fleurs are expected to appear in the Roodepoort Magistrates Court west of Joburg today. This comes after the alleged killers were denied bail last month. Fleurs was shot and killed during a hijacking incident in Roodepoort in April. The suspects face charges of murder, robbery, and defeating the ends of justice. Lerato Makula has more.
Fleurs was at a filling station with 3 of his friends when he was allegedly approached by 2 males armed with firearms that had alighted from a BMW while his friends were inside the shop at the filling station. The suspects have secured legal representation from Legal Aid Board, however they were denied bail. NPA says the denial of bail shows their commitment to hold the alleged perpetrators of violent crimes accountable. For SABC News, I'm Lerato Makula in Johannesburg.
The top story this hour, Build One South Africa Bossa has called for a national convention with President Cyril Ramaphosa. For SAFM News, Gemudupi Makhalemeli.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Durban is open for business and investment. A large delegation from the United States of America, including captains of industry, business, investors, finances, decision makers, and high-profile leaders will attend the 2024 Resurgence Durban Conference to explore and maximize investment opportunities in Durban. Be part of the Resurgence Durban Conference taking place at the Durban ICC from the 17th to the 21st of July 2024. Durban is forging ahead with its plan of action that is aimed at boosting trade and investment within South Africa, the African continent, and the rest of the world. Businesses must register now to exhibit at the conference. Closing date is the 30th of June 2024. To register for the Resurgence Durban Conference and for more information, visit www.resurgenceconference.org.
Do you think you're paying too much on your car insurance? 56-year-old Dylan said no to sky-high insurance premiums. He's now insured with Outsurance and only pays 756 Rand a month to insure his white 2023 Haval Jolian S. To follow in Dylan's footsteps, simply SMS out to 30754 for a quote. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, in a moment we'll continue with the final conversation for the day. I just want to give Budana Phillips, who is Secretary of the Kimberley Action Group, an opportunity then to put, at least on the record, the side of residents when it comes to the challenges they've been experiencing in the Sol Plaatje municipality. Budana, I'll give you about 2-3 minutes for you just to round up your responses to the municipality, which is that they feel they have been following due process, and it's largely residents that are not holding up their end of the stick when it comes to paying for services.
Cathy, even ourselves as Kimberley Action Group, we try by all means to a consultation with the municipality. but it's like we knock on doors that do not allow us in. And look now, with what we are faced with, the fuel prices which are set to shaping our inflation outcome, with service and food price inflation which could worsen and remain high for a longer period of time. With the El Nino weather condition, which is a El Nino related drought condition, whereby even our staple meal, like maize, the harvest of it is going to decline by a quarter on year basis. Now we continue to see a sharp jump in the spot of prices for so many things. Imagine for someone who is also paying a bond. But we have an unaffordability crisis due to our local economy here in Kimberley not growing. We are faced with so much challenges, and all we request is to engage the supply chain municipality. Ask the minister manager there. When last did the supply chain municipality have an entrepreneurship day where we can engage with leadership of the municipality on challenges on improving the economic conditions of residents here in supply chain.
All right.
Okay, Wesley.
Yeah, Butana Phillips, we're going to have to leave it there for this morning. But I think that you have made important points too that the municipality will also have to take into account. And it is a big issue for local government, right? The question of affordability of services right now for many residents. And while municipalities have the responsibility to raise revenue and make sure that they're implementing policy, on the other end, there are the realities of what people are going through and the fact that some simply cannot afford the current prices. And is there a middle ground? What becomes the solution? How do we ensure that local government is sustainable, especially when it comes to paying for services and also implementing what is the policy? Where is that middle ground? And it's a conversation that is not only relevant to Sol Plaatje. It applies in so many other different parts of this country. We're going to take a quick break and then we're going to change gear completely in terms of the conversations we're having.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
Come closer. Over here. Man, oh man, do I have something to tell you? Huh? You know what would happen if you weren't here? No SABC Sport, no The Masked Singer, no Expresso, no Afternoon Express, no Ready Steady Cook, no news and current affairs, no radio, no nothing. Just dololo, silence. But you, my friend, you make it happen. Because you pay your home and business TV license, now we can deal or no deal. Skim Sam, Mubango, Hectic 99, and Fuetspura. Gose Guse, Jovijo. So please keep on keeping on and doing the right thing so we can make new memories and tell stories for the now generation. SABC TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
Attention tourism entrepreneurs, your success starts here. The Tourism Equity Fund is your gateway to growth. Whether you're looking to expand or innovate, call SIFA at 012-748-9600 or visit www.sifa.org.za. SIFA is a registered credit provider. Terms and conditions apply.
#SFM Talking Point.
Our final conversation for this morning, we're looking at residential properties, particularly in the rental market, that are experiencing their lowest vacancy rate since 2016. It's currently sitting at 4.42%. It's according to the TPN Credit Bureau and the latest vacancy survey report for the first quarter of 2024. Now, the survey itself measures the number of sectional and full title residential units across the country. Waldo Marcus is industry principal at TPN Credit Bureau, an MRI software company. Waldo, good morning to you. Thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and thank you very much for having me on your show.
Sbu Nyati is sustainability practitioner at Isakombe Assets and co-host of Ubuntunomics podcast. Good morning, Sbu.
Morning, Cathy, and morning to you, Valdo, and the listeners. Thank you for having me.
And Tato Ramayidi is CEO of the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority. Tato, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to your listeners, and thank you for having me on your show.
Waldo, perhaps let's just start with unpacking this report a little bit more. You were, of course, evaluating then the state of the rental market, the lowest vacancy rate since 2016. Off the face of it, it would sound like it's good news. It will sound like maybe property, at least rental properties, finally on the rebound post the COVID-19 pandemic. Is that, in fact, what we can read into the findings of your report?
Cathy, yes, you correctly stated this is the lowest vacancy in the residential rental market that we've recorded since we started the survey in 2016. If you look at vacancies as a single KPI or key performance indicator, then all the indicators show that the residential rental market is performing very well. However, there's various other factors that one needs to consider when it comes to evaluating the rental market. For instance, tenants' ability to pay and their good standing, rental escalations and growth. The vacancy survey is really focused on trying to give the industry, the investor, and the landlords an indication of what the demand and supply is of rental stock. And there's various factors that, of course, impact that, apart from the others that I mentioned a bit earlier. But the survey really gives a potential investor or landlord an indication of, do I need to increase rental stock or do I need to decrease it? So selling off potential assets. And as a single KPI, yes, the residential market rental market has performed very well and recovered from very high vacancies in 2021, during the peak of the pandemic, where it was sitting at 13.31%. So there was a lot of vacancies going around during that pandemic. And again, there's also other factors that play a big role in that. That was the ability to move around. You had no business travel that took place. Foreign travelers coming into South Africa that usually rents properties on a short-term lease agreement. But all those factors, taking that out, is really about the affordability and the ability of consumers and households purchasing a property versus opting to rent.
It's an indication of, the fact that there is, of course, a number of constraints that consumers are facing. Is there anything else in this data that points to the economic state of consumers right now?
So I think a key factor that one, apart from the obvious interest rates and affordability, that shows that, high interest rates, as we see interest rates come down, we see a slight increase in vacancies as people feel confident on taking out a bond and purchasing a property. As interest rates continue to increase, we then start seeing vacancies within the residential rental market decrease as people affordability becomes a big issue. But another big factor is, of course, the ability of the economy to absorb people into employment. When you're signing a lease agreement, especially in the formal market, you need to have employment, that background checks are performed, and we've seen very high unemployment rates continuing in South Africa, preventing people from moving from informal into the formal rental space. And as we've seen, the economy not absorbing people into formal employment, that continues having a strain on the market and will continue to do so. Another interesting piece of statistics that we interrogated when we compiled this specific quarter report was we looked at the General Household Survey, which was for 2023, which is conducted by Statistics South Africa. What was really interesting was to see the number of individuals that own a property in South Africa versus renting, and then further deep diving into the number that is renting and paying a rental, or those that are occupying rent-free. What we've seen is that there's quite a few people that own their property outright, and that's 56.5% of South African households. Those that are owned but not yet paid off is 6.4%. This is also giving us indication the impact of interest rates. So if you own your property outright, you're not really impacted by interest rates, but other factors such as rates and taxes, repairs and maintenance, utility costs, those increases impact people that own property directly, indirectly tenants, of course, because those costs are passed on. The piece of statistic that really resonated with us was the occupied tenants that are renting, so that's rented households, is 23.9% of South African households. So it's almost a quarter that find themselves in the rental market. Occupied rent-free is 13.2% in South Africa. And that paints a picture for us on what the market size is and what factors really impact on consumers. And over the years, what we've seen from the pandemic, we've seen home ownership peak during the pandemic when we saw interest rates being low, and as the interest rate to the South African Reserve Bank continuing to maintain high levels on the repo rate, we've seen that home ownership decreased and the number of households renting increased.
All right. Thanks for that. Thanks for that breakup, Waldo. Is there any indication of the demographic here in terms of age? Do we have that breakdown?
We don't have that breakdown. We don't go into that kind of detail.
All right.
But when we look at, for instance, the tenant survey, we do see that there is, how the age brackets that we really go into a bit more detail.
Okay. Thanks for that, Waldo. Sbu, what do you make of this data and what it tells us about what's going on in our country?
Yeah, thank you again, Cathy. What it tells me is that there is a correlation with economic performance. I mean, we've had an economy that has been stagnant for the past 15 years, and this makes it impossible for new entrants to come into the market, into the property sector, to own property. And the reason is mainly because of macroeconomic conditions. We've got an employment crisis, and we've got a macroeconomic framework crisis. You would recall that back when Thabo Mbeki had that wonderful, when we had those boom years, that was between 2004 to about 2006, credit extension rose from about 739 billion to 1.2 trillion. So that was a 67% increase. And so that had a direct impact on South Africa's economic performance, because mortgage loans make up 50% of credit, which is followed by overdraft at about 28%. So in 2008, there was a slowdown. This was precipitated by the subprime mortgage crisis out in the U.S., which led to the demise of Lehman Brothers in 2008. And so what happened is that we started slowing down, and South Africa enacted the National Credit Act, which put further brakes on credit extension. And so if you don't have new entrants into property ownership, you also have a direct impact on fixed gross capital formation. Because these are mutually reinforcing. If you don't have growth, then you don't have employment, then you don't have fixed capital formation. So the National Development Plan had forecast that by 2030 would be investing in the region of about 30% of our GDP into growing the economy, into assets. But currently we are sitting at 14%. So we've got a lot of problems, but the main factor is our macroeconomic trajectory. So it also influences declining real incomes, because households cannot afford anymore. Because if you look at the South African economy, you will see that GDP per capita decreased by a whopping 46% between 2011 and 2024. So that's where it all lies.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Tato, let me bring you in here, because of course, again, for people that have properties, that have put up properties on the market, that have built back rooms in their homes, or in their yards, this is then good news. But what are the things that landlords need to be mindful of? Because I can't imagine that it's just good news all the way, because we know that with rentals, every year, just as with everything else, there's inflation and the prices must go up.
Yes, so you are right, Cathy, and let me just say that I do align myself with the speakers before me, right? But what we also need to do, I think, as a regulatory body, as well as the rental tribunal, that we have to monitor and prevent, exploitative rent increases. Because obviously, if there is more demand than supply, right, there will be people who will take advantage of the situation and put up rent at escalated prices. What that would mean then is, of course, it's more money for the landlords, which is great, but the likelihood of tenants defaulting within a short period of time, obviously that is also going to increase. That would mean obviously more claims or disputes as far as we are concerned, because then we will get more. We will have to adjudicate between tenants and landlords and do that dispute resolution. So it may sound that it's all great right now, Cathy, but we have to be mindful of exploitative rental price hikes, if I can put it that way.
How is that managed, Tato? Because it's the prerogative of every landlord to charge what he thinks his property is worth. So how do you, as the regulator, manage then those prices?
And for me, so we obviously don't have a mandate to manage prices, but this is where now the practitioners who are on the ground, that's where we're going to hold them accountable, because they need to ensure that the prices that are being put out there, I know we're talking about rentals, but that will go for sales as well, that they are reasonable, they are fair, obviously to the consumers. because our mandate is around consumer protection, but it is also our duty to ensure that we ensure that property practitioners adhere by the code of conduct, and that code of conduct basically says that they need to ensure that they put the consumer's interest at play, and the consumer in this case will be the tenants as well as the landlords. So that is their duty. And for any prices that are escalated and consumers feel that they are being priced out of the market, those claims can be brought to us, and then we will also do our due diligence, obviously, with the companies like TPN to ensure what has been the market, the price in whatever market, because we also need to be cognizant of the fact that it varies. Rental prices vary from market to market, area to area, province to province, Cathy.
All right. We're going to continue this conversation in a moment. It's at 11:30. Time for your latest news headlines.
A very good morning to you with the news headlines. Ke Modupi Makhalemele. 9 organizations have lamented the state of the country and the despondency of the country's citizens. The Rules Committee in Parliament has resolved that the composition of the portfolio committees must be increased to 15 members, and demonstrators in Kenya have pledged to return to the streets today, even though President William Ruto bowed to pressure yesterday and withdrew planned tax hikes. A full news update coming up at midday.
This year, we are celebrating Youth Month under the theme Actively Embracing the Socio-Economic Gains of Our Democracy. As we commemorate the massacre of school children during the Soweto Uprising of 1976, we also celebrate the liberation of our beloved country. #Freedom30, #Youth Month.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha.
The world's best cooking show is coming to S3. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumapi, and no matter your favorite dish, see if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Starts Saturday 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Shop till you drop once you get the best insurance premium, just like 53-year-old Candace, who pays only 766 Rand per month on her grey 2022 Suzuki Vitara Brezza GL with insurance. With cheaper premiums, she can afford to go shopping. SMS out to 30754 for an insurance quote. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
#SAFM Talking Point.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. We're talking about the residential rental property market and just how people have been taking up rentals to the point where the vacancy rate is at its lowest since 2016. Waldo Marcus is industry principal at TPN Credit Bureau. Zbunyati, sustainability practitioner at Isakombe Assets and co-host of Ubuntu Nomics podcast, and Tato Ramaidi, CEO of the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority. Waldo, undoubtedly, with the rentals market looking as good as it is on the residential side, lots of people, of course, be thinking, well, should I actually be investing in this market? What are the things you would say people would need to think about, consider, take into account before jumping in?
Sorry, hi Cathy. There's a couple of things that an investor needs to consider. Location is very, very important. So which province as well as which suburbs will provide a good return on investment. The other is the rental value band in which your property is positioned. We touched earlier on rental values and rental escalations. And again, it's not all areas that have seen benefited from low vacancies, and therefore rental escalations have been relatively confined to below the CPI level and slowed down, especially in quarter 4 or quarter 1 of this year. And so a rental value band is very, very important, speaking to the market. The other one then is the location. Other considerations is the cost of capital and how the asset or the investment is being funded. During high interest rates, the cost of capital is more expensive. Other than running cost, and we delve a bit more into detail in a tenant survey we published about 3 weeks ago, is continuous running costs. The running cost of maintaining a property, the security of that property, upgrades that might be needed going forward. But another key important one is to ensure that you follow all the necessary regulations around renting out your property. For instance, have a signed lease agreement. Make sure that lease agreement complies with all the necessary information, that you do protect your asset and your investment.
Which are some of is there a particular band that is ideal for the South African rental market? I know it'll vary, from location to location, but when you look what is happening in different parts of the country, what is the rental sweet spot? How much are people paying that, if it's priced within this band, then you won't struggle to actually get tenants?
So we measure across the various rental value bands the vacancies, and let me speak maybe to the vacancy sweet spot at the moment. Is we've traditionally seen rental units that achieve between the 7,000 and 12,000 rand a month rental band, maintain low vacancies. That's followed by those that achieve a 4,500 to 7,000 rand a month rental. Again, the depending on the economy and depending on other economic influences, these change. So in the first quarter of this year, the lowest vacancies were actually recorded by the luxury rental value band. So those are rentals between 12,000 and 25,000 rand a month. Their rental vacancies were sitting at 3.57%. Those paying less than 3,000 rand a month rental during really tough economic times, we see those vacancies increase. According to our latest statistics, it is now at 4.51%, so below the 5% mark, and those are less than 3,000 rand a month rentals. What we should also note is then if we also look at the rental performance and the tenant's ability to pay rent on time, which is ultimately a landlord's cash flow, and there we find the sweet spot is tenants paying between 4,500 and 7,000. Yet again, they have one of the best good standing ratios at 84.45%. Those paying between 12 and 25,000 rand a month, those luxury markets have also performed very, very well. But if we look at all our statistics over the years, we've really seen that sweet spot between the 4,500 and 7,000 and 12,000 rand rental brackets in the formal markets perform overall very well.
All right, and I think that information is useful for those then that are also thinking about playing in the rental space. I want to take a couple of questions from our listeners.
Who's Cathy?
Cathy, as far as landlord and tenants are concerned, there's another question from Daniel Joshua Cholan. We go and sign a contract to rent a property. You got like a 2-bedroom house or a 3-bedroom house, and then you pay a certain rental for that space that you are renting, and then they want a 10% increase every year. Is that fair on a tenant, because he's not getting more space and he's paying lights and water separately on his own, which the landlord not inclusive, and then he has to pay every year an increase when he's got the same space. He hasn't got extra space to pay more for it. So is that fair to a tenant? And also there's a lot of confusion as far as deposit is concerned and advance payment of rent. I was given to understand that the deposit is paid so that when the house is handed back, must be handed back in the same condition. If not, the deposit will be used to bring it up to the standard it was given to the owner, to the tenant. So there's a lot of confusion going on that, because they don't give you back your deposit in some cases. The landlord manipulate the people and take the deposit and don't give them back the deposit. Thank you and God bless you.
Yeah, I think those are very important questions. Tato, do you want to tackle some of those questions? Sbu, I also will give you a chance in case you want to come in too.
Okay, yeah, no problem, Cathy. So the caller wanted was clarity on the issue of rental escalation. Remember, a lease agreement is renewable every single year, and the content or the clauses pertained in that lease are reviewed annually. So yes, the lease may say that, every year there's a rental increase of 10%, but the tenant does not have to agree to that. So what I'm saying is that it is not forced. Yes, I understand when he said that the space is not changing, but Cathy, earlier in our conversation you spoke about the cost of living, right? So that's the other factor that landlords have to take into consideration. Waldo spoke earlier about just municipal increases. So yes, the space may not increase, but affluent cost increase, electricity, maybe gardening services increase. So those are the costs that landlords also have to take into consideration. But the tenant, at the end of the day, has the choice whether they want to still enter into this agreement every single year. So the renewal or the escalation is not automatic, right? And then the second thing that the speaker or the caller mentioned is the issue around the rental deposit. So first and foremost, the rental deposit, when it's paid by the tenant, it's supposed to be put into an interest-bearing account by the landlord, right? And upon the departure of the tenant, yes, there are factors that need to be considered. The status of the condition of the property has to be the same, and if that's the case and all the boxes are ticked, the tenant is entitled to the refund of the rental deposit with interest earned on top of that. So if that's not being done, that's something that needs to be brought to the attention of the rental tribunal as a point of departure, and then secondly to the PPRA, because that means then the landlord will be in breach. And obviously this is me speaking, not having the facts of this particular lease agreement, but that's the standard of all lease agreements, that the deposit is paid into a interest-bearing account.
Tato, what recourse do tenants have when it comes to this issue of deposits, and especially where it hasn't been put in an interest-bearing account?
We've had numerous of those complaints, Cathy. So some of the matters that we adjudicate over, it will be, I was not paid a rental amount of 4,000, and obviously we bring the landlords into our premises, and in most cases, if not all, those amounts are then paid. But obviously it's with our intervention, which it shouldn't be, because like I'm saying, the amounts in question are not really exorbitant. But their recourse is that for the tenant rather, is to bring it to our attention with proof, obviously, and then we will ensure that the tenant is treated and paid their deposit back with interest.
Okay. Sbu, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up this conversation?
I think Tato has covered all of that in terms of the contentious deposit issue. I read somewhere that younger tenants would prefer long-term leases instead of paying upfront rental deposits because it gets messy. But as we wrap up, I would just like to say investment in property has become is contrary to popular view. It is not as lucrative as it has always been made out to be, because from 2007 to 2021, inflation has eaten up on people's investment because property values are not going up, and in real terms, the property values have declined by 8.3%. So I would just like to say, if people are thinking of investing in property, they should have a closer look. And in fact, this very report confirms that people are moving towards renting than owning properties because of the high interest rate environment, because that puts a lot of pressure on net returns. And as Valdo said before, the cost of capital is also very important to consider.
All right.
Yeah.
So people must absolutely do their homework, understand what it is that you're getting yourself into, and account for all of the costs then that come with owning a property, utilities, maintenance, all that was mentioned throughout this conversation. All right, that's where we leave things on this Thursday morning on The Talking Point. The show back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday. Have a lovely afternoon. Up next is the book reading.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of The Door, an addict's journey, read by Simpson Kumalo.
One time coming from Club Malasha, I'd only been driving for about 10 minutes when I had to stop and use. I'm pretty sure I was being targeted for a robbery that day, and I hadn't been in the club for more than 15 minutes when something told me I should leave. I'd already bought my stash, but had decided I would stay for a beer and check out the scene. But I think God was looking after me. I decided to leave, and as I did, I saw cops parking outside, and I could see from my rear view mirror blue lights following me, and I decided to duck and speed away, and they were chasing me. Thank God I knew the back roads of Rosebank. I had a stash in my car and 2 pipes, but I wasn't going to throw all of it away. If they wanted to catch me, they would have to work a little harder. I pulled into one of the dark, quiet streets and kept my cool until the dust settled. Then I took a different route home, praying that I wasn't being followed. I was done with Club Malasha. I found dealers in Benoni and Brakpan and decided to keep them both to minimize my risk. I had it all figured out in my head and would conceive and devise plans and means of where to hide my stash. One of my dealers was really close to the school my kids went to in Benoni. I hit it off with him. He knew exactly what I needed as soon as we met. He told me he had nice girls and introduced me to a Motswana girl who was also a user. One thing I'm grateful for is that I never introduced anyone to drugs. I found them messed up and perhaps messed them up even more, but I never went out of my way to trip someone up. They came to me tripped already, and all I did was continue to feed their habit. When I first tried my new dealer's merchandise, it was nothing to write home about, so I complained. He promised to change it and spoke to his boss about cooking something up just for me, something nobody else would get. The new stuff was not only good, but I also felt that it was too strong, but I wasn't complaining. I was beginning to love crack, and the more I loved it, the more it sucked me into its world. I was smoking and smoking hard, and it was becoming difficult to stop. I found myself no longer sleeping properly, and the desire to use was overwhelming. But the dealer was at least closer to my home. I had to juggle this new lifestyle and keep everyone from ever finding out. I had to do a lot of balancing to keep the already fragile home fire going and feed this new habit that was now demanding more of my attention. I couldn't sustain it though. I was finding myself having to lie about ordinary mundane things. I had to keep up the image of going to church. After all, I was a leader and people were looking up to me. I had to smile and keep alive the attitude. I was going to church every Sunday without fail, but the cravings were equally regular. I would keep a stash in my car. As a leader, I was expected to attend both services. So in between services, I would go to the restroom of the church and would light up the pipe and inhale a couple of times just to calm my nerves. I was a bona fide user. I was a junkie in denial and my life was slowly coming off the seam. I started to use every day and the amount also started to increase. But I still believed that I could control my addiction and could still hide it. My office was in downtown Johannesburg. I was earning an income and held our board meetings twice a month. It was becoming a chore balancing work, family, and my newfound drug life. When I was a director of Empower Greneka LTA, together with my business partner Mulifi Madisakwane, we had a shareholders meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. I was coming from Brakpan, and as I usually did, I left home really early. I didn't like being late for meetings. Normally, I would drive at a leisurely pace, arrive way before time and sit in my car reading the newspaper, waiting for the meeting to begin. That morning, I left earlier than usual, and when I realized how much time I would have before the meeting, that little demon of addiction put ideas in my head. Before I knew it, I was in Hillbrook to pick up a few stones to smoke before the meeting. I figured with an article, I could smoke for 45 minutes, compose myself, and then go to the meeting. Who was I kidding? 1 puff is too much and 1,000 is never enough. I made it to the dealer, got my stash, and found a secluded place. 45 minutes came and went. And by then, I wanted even more, and the idea of the meeting was no longer appealing. But I needed a good excuse as I was expected there. I certainly wasn't in a stage to attend the meeting anymore and didn't want anyone to see me like that. So I drove to the freeway, put my hazards on, got out of the car and called Mulifi. I knew he'd hear I was on the road with cars hooting and whizzing past. I told him I had a minor accident and to proceed with the meeting without me. He was very concerned and hoped I was okay, but accepted my excuse. What was important is that he bought it and I was happy. I was free. I had all day to go and score and use at my leisure. I decided if they called to check on me, I'll just give them gory details about my accident. I drove straight back to my dealer and bought more. The fascinating thing about using is that time doesn't work as it usually does. It felt like minutes and then it was dark. The whole day seemed like a couple of hours. This was the beginning of the deterioration of my life as I knew it. I was high all the time and kept pipes and drugs everywhere. I stashed rocks and pipes everywhere, in my garage, in the garden, in my car. That day of the accident, I drove to Boksburg after I had gotten enough stash and checked myself in a hotel called The Grand. I was a serious regular at this hotel as it was private, very discreet and small. My modus operandi at this hotel was to book a room and leave and go and score some drugs, and if necessary hook up with a chick and give her the room key. I would tell her where to go, and 15-20 minutes later, I would follow with a newspaper in my hand and pass the reception like a businessman. I thought it was a great cover, but I'm not sure that I was actually fooling anyone. The spiritual contradictions I was experiencing within are just too difficult to describe. My conscience told me that I was wrong and that I needed to rid myself of this thing. The spirit was willing, but the flesh was just too weak to do anything. I would kneel and pray on my own and declare before God my tiredness of using, and somehow I could see that I was destroying my family and myself in the process. But I couldn't drum up the courage to get help. One morning, after having prayed for this thing to go away, I took my pipe and a bit of rock and prayed over it for what seemed like an hour. I decided that after dropping my kids at school, I would take the N12 towards Witbank in an attempt to rid myself of this thing. I was singing gospel music and was feeling the strength of overcoming, just overwhelming, and knew that this was it. I was not going to be defeated by a glass and some small rocks. I must have done just over 50 kilometers and was in another province and decided this was the place for me to dump the drugs and the pipe. I drove back home with a sense of relief and was encouraging and motivating myself. In my heart of hearts, I knew I was done. No more. I was not going to let myself be a slave to drugs. I had a personal revival and felt good about myself. I went home and continued with my newfound freedom that day and was happy as anything. But as the day went on, I was slowly slipping back in the mood to use, and I failed dismally. When my wife came home that day, we had a minor tiff. It made me feel like rubbish, so I went straight to my dealer. I think our argument somehow became triggers for me to go and use. I don't blame her for my condition, but every time we had an argument, I was ready to phone the dealer to distress over the situation. It was almost like I was forever looking for a fight so that I could have an excuse to sort myself out with some rocks. Nightfall came and I continued to use in the garage in my car. The high was getting even more intense, and so were the cravings. I had run out of money, and I guess my dealer sensed that somehow because his phone was off. I remembered the stash I dished on the highway in Witbank, so I drove back. An hour later, I was on my hands and knees on the side of the road searching for my stash. I found it, declared in my heart, praise God, and quickly prepared one for the road. I smoked one rock and headed back home. I was ecstatic and was also getting hot. So I slid my pants and underwear to my knee and washed my rear view mirror for anyone following me. I switched on my interior light so I could get my pipe ready. I smoked, half naked, driving along the freeway. I didn't care how dangerous it was. I was loving the high. I got to my neighborhood around 2:30 in the morning and went to the seedy place in Brakpan where my dealer lived. I hooted until he got annoyed and woke up. I gave him whatever cash I had in my pocket and told him I'd give him more when the banks opened in the morning. He told me straight up that my money was not enough and I needed to leave something in exchange for the drugs. What the... Was this dude for real? I'd been a good customer to this bloke and he treated me like rubbish the first time I couldn't pay him. I wished I was home affairs. I would ship him back to Nigeria. But I needed to get high and get high very urgently. I left my phone with him because I figured I wouldn't need to call anyone at that time of the morning. He gave me half a moon of some really good stuff and threw in a pipe while he was at it. I had two pipes in my possession, one relatively old and the other brand new. Normally when I got a new pipe, I would throw the old one away, but I decided to keep them both. This was because I could prepare both at the same time, and while I was inhaling from the one, I could light the other and not waste any time chasing the high. I was getting out of control. I drove around looking for a chick, but my paranoia soon kicked in and I went home instead. My job spec shifted and I became office bound for a while, managing one of the company's investments. I had my office next to one of my partners, Caesar Mulibatsi. I started to keep away from everyone and locked my office, pretending to be working. I had a stash of a few rocks, but sometimes if they weren't lit properly, they would smell. I figured if I continued on this path, somebody would barge in and find smoke they couldn't figure out. So I decided to try coke instead. It would be my first time, but I knew how it was done. I had seen it done. I organized some and put lines on my desk and shoved it up my nose. The high was not instant like rock, but boy, it messed me up. I thought I could use the drugs interchangeably. When I got home that day, nobody was there, so I took a 100 rand note, my razor, cut some lines, and boom, like flies, I was on it.
That was another episode of The Door, an addict's journey written by Abner Mariri. The book is available on www.abner.africa. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursday on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Samson Kumalo, technical production by Nanda Koza.
This year, we are celebrating Youth Month under the theme Actively Embracing the Socio-Economic Gains of Our Democracy. As we commemorate the massacre of school children during the Soweto Uprising of 1976, we also celebrate the liberation of our beloved country. Hashtag Freedom30. Hashtag Youth Month. If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg.
$12 on Thursday, the 27th of June 2024. Very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour,
the results produced by the 2024 elections calls upon all of us to reflect on the South Africa we want for the future and our children.
Chairperson of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi, says that South Africa is in a crisis and
they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024. I concede, and therefore I will not sign.
Kenyan President William Ruto has backed down on the tax hikes after deadly unrest. Coming up in sport,
just one word: Proteas.
More on that later with John Gericke. We also want to hear from you. 41391 is the SMS line number. You can tell us your thoughts there. Charged at R1.50 per SMS. You can also write to us via X or Facebook at SABC News_radio or using the hashtag Updated Noon. Alternatively, there's the WhatsApp voice note number 0826923909. All these and more stories coming up on this Wednesday edition of Updated Noon. First though, well, it's Thursday actually. Thursday edition of Updated Noon. First though, here's Mudupi Kgalimele with the latest news.
Thank you very much, SK. The top stories at midday: more calls for a government dialogue and Kenyan protesters vow to continue fighting. A very good afternoon. 9 organizations have lamented the state of the country and the despondency of the country's citizens. They warn that this threatens to reverse the gains made in the country's democracy. The organizations, including the Steve Biko, Thabo Mbeki, Ahmed Kathrada and Desmond and Leah Tutu foundations, have called on South Africans to engage in a national dialogue that will seek to change the country's direction. Nkosinathi Biko addressed the media on behalf of the foundations.
For some time now, and certainly in the past 15 years, South Africa has found herself on a dangerous and uncertain path, a directionless corruption of our body politic that has led to the current state of paralysis in social, economic, political and governance spheres and national despair. The current parlous state of our economic growth, coupled with widespread corruption and crime, poverty, gross inequality, and intractable unemployment have earned our nation a dishonorable place on many global indices. Such a ticking time bomb must be disarmed.
The Municipal Public Accounts Committee, MPAC, has called for City of Tshwane officials implicated in irregular expenditure amounting to 246 million rand to pay the money back from their pockets. The irregularly spent funds were flagged by the committee during its review of the financial activities in the municipality for the 2023-24 financial year. MPAC Chair Kholofelo Murudi says the committee's decision sends a clear message to officials that financial mismanagement will not be tolerated.
It is a requirement by Section 32 of the Municipal Finance Management Act that when officials spend money or have found that money was spent irregularly, that money should be recovered. So it's something that is provided for by the law. Circular 68 clearly spells out the process of what needs to happen. As MPEG, we are making sure that we follow the law. We make sure that if there is an irregular expenditure, we have to make sure that that money is recovered from those that have found to have been negligent.
Parliament's Rules Committee has resolved that the composition of the portfolio committees must be increased to 15 members. During the 6th Parliament, all committees were made up of 11 members, but senior officials have proposed that each committee must be increased to 15 MPs. However, it was also decided that the matter will be deferred to the Rules Subcommittee to make further input before final adoption. The Secretary to Parliament, Masibulele Qaso.
Members will be aware that the number of parties has now increased, and therefore we are proposing that the size of committees also be increased, or the composition of committees be increased. In that regard, we are proposing that the number be increased to 15 members from 11, and that the ANC would then have 5 in that, the A3, MK2, EFF 1, and other parties 4, other parties combined 4.
The SABC's isiXhosa news anchor, Sia Vuyasineke, has been honored by the Eastern Cape Arts and Culture Department for his role in preserving and promoting the isiXhosa language. Sineke was honored in a glittering event at Rhodes University in Makhanda. The event was part of the National Arts Festival currently underway in the town. The department says it is imperative to prioritize indigenous languages as they continue to shape identity in the democratic dispensation. Sineke says he is honored by this gesture and emphasized the importance of embracing one's mother tongue.
I feel so honored. It means a lot, especially coming from the home province, the Eastern Cape. It means a lot, especially for someone like me using isiXhosa, an African language. Roughly we know most people, especially the current, the young generation, tend to use more English than the African languages. So this means a lot. There's a future for our language. I'm so honored.
And demonstrators in Kenya have pledged to return to the streets today, even though President William Ruto bowed to pressure yesterday and withdrew planned tax hikes. Ruto reversed course after deadly protests during which Parliament was ransacked. More from the BBC's Anne Soy.
There appears to be a split among the young people who have been coming out to protest. Whilst some are determined to continue the protests and they want to march to State House, others have been urging them against doing that. But the consensus appears to be that this was not just about the finance bill. They're still not happy with what they see as corruption, and it has been fueled by some of the close allies of the president who have been coming out, giving out wads of cash in fundraisers, living opulent lives.
The top story at midday, 9 organizations have lamented the state of the country and the despondency of the country's citizens. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemeli.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo.
Well, thanks, Madupi. Good afternoon, everybody. It's 8 minutes after 12. Thanks so much for being with us here on Update at Noon. So, some of those stories, of course, we'll be bringing you further updates on the civil society groupings that held that briefing earlier to drive a national dialogue in the country. Would love to hear your view on that. And, of course, as I said, we will play for you what was said during that briefing earlier today. And this was held in Houghton. So, it was at the Sanctuary Mandela, and we'll tell you a little bit more. In fact, we'll play for you what was said there. And speaking of the national dialogue, we are still keeping an eye on developments around the government of national unity. So at this stage, seemingly there is, or perhaps there isn't, a lot of speculation about, but it would seem as though we are now looking towards the weekend for an announcement by the president. We said this last weekend, didn't we? But yeah, this is where we are. So as soon as there's anything concrete to go by, we certainly will let you know what it is. And then also the South African Reserve Bank, they are releasing their quarterly bulletin. That report, of course, summarizes the developments in the local economy in terms of inflation, growth projections, consumer spending, investments and policy rates. So also just watching that one for us is Naledi Ngobo. And then some court stories we'll follow up. A 40-year-old man expected to appear in Cape Town's Magistrates Court today. This with alongside the alleged gang boss in connection with the murder of a city official, Wendy Kloppers. If you'll remember that story, she was gunned down. And it's one of those stories around racketeering, and we'll just follow up on that and a few other court stories from around the country. Also checking what's happening in that case of the IEC official. We spoke about this yesterday in the Pietermaritzburg Magistrates Court. So today, Fanele Mhlongo watching that one for us. And of course, some developments on the continent, and we'll find out what's happening in Kenya, the latest there. This after President William Ruto decided not to sign that bill that led to widespread protests that turned deadly. So those are some of the stories we're following up on.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
Now we start here in Johannesburg, where the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, in collaboration with other foundations, including the Steve Biko Foundation and Chief Albert Luthuli Foundation, are calling for a national dialogue aimed at uniting the country and also to reflect on its future. The chairperson of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi, says that South Africa is in crisis. She was speaking at a joint event with other foundations on the future of the country at Sanctuary Mandela.
It's quite clear, building on what has been raised earlier, that South Africa is in a political crisis at this moment. For the first time in 30 years, the electorate have decided not to give any political party a majority vote. This has presented an opportunity for citizens, for communities, and for everyone to review the past years and to focus on what has gone wrong and how that can be addressed. The results produced by the 2024 elections calls upon all of us to reflect on the South Africa we want for the future and our children. And as was pointed out by Lindy, there's been two previous occasions quite seminal for this country where there has been a reflection of that sort. The one was at the Congress of the People when the call was made for that resulted in the development, the formation of the Freedom Charter itself and the whole process around that. And the second one, CODESA, but I take it further and say the actual Constituent Assembly, because that constitution came through inputs not of a few wise men and women, but it came as a result of contributions of the people of South Africa, and it resulted in the 1996 Constitution. What was set out when the democratic dispensation was established and the Constitution was adopted has not been achieved, and I think we all would agree there's a lot more work to be done.
That was the chairperson of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi. Steve Biko Foundation CEO Nkosinathi Biko says that South Africa finds itself in a perilous state.
The purpose of the national dialogue is to develop a common vision, and through our collective agency, one, intervene to bolster our substantive democracy. 2, recalibrate our developmental trajectory. And lastly, reorientate our nation towards the attainment of our deferred dream as we look forward to the next 30 years and beyond. For some time now, and certainly in the past 15 years, South Africa has found herself on a dangerous and uncertain path. A directionless corruption of our body politic that has led to the current state of paralysis in social, economic, political, and governance spheres, and national despair. The current parlous state of our economic growth, coupled with widespread corruption and crime, poverty, gross inequality, and intractable unemployment, have earned our nation a dishonorable place on many global indices. This poor performance is corroborated by the lived reality of the majority of our citizens, whose experience has rendered us the protest capital of the world. Such a ticking time bomb must be disarmed, and it must be disarmed through a more responsive democracy.
Well, that was Nkosinathi Biko, the Steve Biko Foundation CEO. Please let us know your thoughts on this national dialogue that is being proposed here, and what you think the shape of it should be. Because it's all good and well to say we've listened to all South Africans. Which are all those South Africans? What are the sort of platforms that will be available so that all South Africans can have their voices heard? So this, I suppose, is part of what would make up that national dialogue. But I'd love to hear your views. Please either send us a message in writing or via voice note.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
Moving further afield, Kenyan President William Ruto has withdrawn the contentious finance bill that sparked nationwide deadly protests. Now, President Ruto says that he has listened to the people and expressed his condolences to the families who lost loved ones during the demonstrations. Scores of protesters stormed some section of the country's parliament yesterday, and this after lawmakers had voted in favor of tax hikes seeking to raise additional $2.7 billion to service debt. Kailihle Kumalo has more on this.
On the continuing conversation around the content of the Finance Bill 2024, and listening keenly to the people of Kenya who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn.
And about 10 after the violent protests have claimed lives in Kenya, President William Ruto says his administration has sought to implement the finance bill to deal with the debt crisis facing the country. He has also called for the East African nation to have a dialogue with the young people in other key sectors.
In this regard as well, I am directing for immediate further austerity measures to reduce expenditure, starting with the office of the President, the entire presidency, and extending to the entire executive arm of government. Operational expenditure in the presidency be reduced to remove allocations for the confidential fort, reduce travel, hospitality, purchase of motor vehicles, renovations, and other expenditures. This will cover the entire presidency and also the executive arm of government. I also propose that equally Parliament, the judiciary, and county governments working with the National Treasury, also undertake budget cuts.
Some Kenyans in South Africa have denounced the loss of life, and they hope that the government learns some lessons.
It's not just the bill, it's the spirit of the bill. It's how the bill was crafted, how it came to be. And there's a lesson that the government needs to learn here. They're dealing with Gen Z, the Generation Z. And this generation, they are young people that are globalized, they are learned, they are schooled, they will ask questions. You are not going to force anything down their throats.
We're also very concerned about reported cases of targeted arbitrary detentions. It is very important that the rights of people to demonstrate peacefully be upheld. As we say anywhere around the world, it is up also to authorities to ensure that those rights are respected, and that all incidents of deaths in the hands of security forces be fully investigated, that people be held to account. He urges the police and the authorities and security forces in Kenya to exercise restraint and for the demonstrators to act peacefully.
The economic freedom fighters, once again, we call on President Ruto to immediately cease the violent suppression of protesters, to withdraw the military and police from the streets and engage in a meaningful dialogue with the citizens of Kenya. The voices of the people, they must be heard, they must be respected, and they must not be silenced through bloodshed and intimidation.
Kyle Kumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
So for analysis, we joined on the line now by Alan Ngari, who's Advocacy Director for the Africa Division at Human Rights Watch. Alan, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Updated Noon.
Thanks so much, Sakina. Good to be on your show.
Alan, firstly, listening to President William Ruto obviously bowing to pressure, he announced that he would not sign the contentious finance bill. And this, of course, after the protests that turned deadly. Listening to what he has now announced in terms of austerity measures for government, people are asking, why didn't he start there?
Very good question. And, I need to first pay tribute to the Gen Zs in Kenya that were on the streets and using their lingo, President Ruto folded. So that's what we have seen. On the question of the austerity measures, these are questions that were raised way before. In fact, there were protests already last week saying that the bill was too punitive. The tax additions would really hurt the low and middle income people, particularly in Kenya. And so we didn't see any flinching, any changes at the National Assembly level or even from the president himself. So this really is a win for Kenyans that this bill has been referred back to the National Assembly for reconsideration, which means, according to the president, a deletion of all the clauses.
With that being said, and what the president announced, is this the end of it? Because we've heard some reports of the demonstrators saying that they plan to gather again in the city centre in order to mourn those who had lost their lives. But again, also vowing to stage another march to the president's official residence, State House. So is there more afoot here, given that, as you say, using the lingo of the Gen Zs, the president folded? So is this likely a sign for them that they could push for more?
Sakina, what we saw 2 days ago in Kenya, the excessive use of force by the police, the deployment of the Kenyan Defence Forces without the sanction of the Constitution, which requires the National Assembly to do so, and then the abductions of Kenyans, the killings of so many people, even outside the protest hours, into the night in some parts outside of Nairobi. There were gunshots that could be heard late into the night, into the early morning. And so it seems that what has now with the folding that has happened, the next step that the protesters in Kenya are calling for is a resignation of the Ruto government. And so the protests today are really aimed at, they call it occupying the State House in Nairobi, where the president lives and where his official offices are. And that is unfolding as we speak.
Where does this leave President Ruto and his administration?
In a very difficult spot. We've been seeing in our analysis of the previous conduct of the executive, and we have documented this for most of the year, this year particularly, where the Kenyan executive seems to be going rogue and is on a frolic of its own. Earlier in the year, we saw that the president and members of the executive extremely undermining the judiciary by saying that decisions by the judiciary related to state programs, which programs obviously has very heavy financial obligations on the Kenyan people, should not be followed. And so there was a spat between the executive and the judiciary for the earlier part of the year. And so to see these protests going on now, it's really just an indication that Kenyans are dissatisfied by the choice that they had made in the last elections, and they are calling the executive to account. They will not wait for 5 years before they make their concerns known to the executive. So we are yet to see, but the pressure is certainly mounting on the executive in Kenya.
And of course, Alan, at the heart of it all is Kenya trying to service its debt, runaway debt at this point. And how are they going to balance that particular situation?
This is a conversation that we really need to interrogate a bit deeper. We understood from the IMF last year that there were certain conditionalities that were placed on Kenya that would require some reforms, economic reform. And the interpretation by the Kenyan executive is exactly what we saw in the finance bill as an example, that taxes would be increased on some products, some services in the country that were previously not subject to tax, or which were exempted for certain waivers that were granted on certain goods. We're talking about bread, we're talking about milk, oil, cancer treatments, things like that. And so the question now is, should we be interrogating and really looking into these conditionalities that the IMF placed on the Kenyan government for the loans that the Kenyan government received? Indeed, Kenya is neck deep in debt, and these this is an attempt by the executive to raise revenues to meet the demands of the loans and also servicing the people. And I think that last part of servicing or providing services for the people is what is under question, because it appears that the health and education and other sectors that would really uplift the people are not going to get the allocations that are necessary to uplift the people.
By government's own admission, though, if the Kenyan government is spending 61 out of every 100 Kenyan shillings on paying servicing debt, there isn't much left for anything else, is there, Alan?
There isn't, but there are also some expenditures that are completely unjustified and uncalled for. We've seen the excessive spending by the executive, and I suppose this is why the President Ruto then made his statement yesterday about imposing austerity measures on the executive branch. But this has been going on for a while, and that was not done before, and so this is where the of the Gen Z and just Kenyans as a whole is that you did not do this before. Your government was misallocating funds, misspending funds. The corruption levels are sky high. All this under his watch. This is of great concern to Kenyans.
That's what we'll leave it for now. Thanks so much, Alan, for your time. Alan Ngari is Advocacy Director for the Africa Division at Human Rights Watch. And we continue to watch that, as you heard there from Alan, that the protesters will get